Carrie Bradshaw has always been more than just a character. She's been a mirror for love, heartbreak, and the messy search for happiness. But when, and just like that season 3 came to its dramatic close, it didn't just give us an ending, it left us with questions, big questions. What really happened to Carrie Bradshaw? Was this closure, or a brand new beginning hiding in plain sight? To understand what the finale really meant, we first need to rewind and look at how Carrie's journey in season 3 was shaped from the very beginning. Carrie entered this season still living under the long shadow of Mr. Big's death. Season 2 showed her testing the waters of love again, but Season 3 forced her to face what moving forward actually means. Not just in her romantic life, but in every corner of her identity. The writer, the friend, the woman who once believed love stories were the ultimate destiny. This wasn't just another chapter. This was Carrie confronting her own narrative. Throughout the season, we saw Carrie balancing two sides of herself, the woman who cherished her past and the woman who was desperate to embrace a new future. She flirted with the idea of new love, but she also clung to the memories of Big every date, every conversation. Even her reflections with her friends hinted at this inner war. And the writers of And Just Like That didn't shy away from making us watch that tension unfold in painfully real ways. But the ending of Season 3 didn't just land out of nowhere. The groundwork was laid in subtle choices. Carrie began questioning her career as a writer. Was she still the same voice she once was? Could she still capture the essence of relationships when her own had been tested, broken, and rebuilt so many times? This professional struggle became a mirror for her personal life. Just as she wondered if her career still had meaning, she asked herself if love did too. The friendships around Carrie also shaped the path to the finale. Charlotte's attempts to redefine herself after years of motherhood, Miranda's messy entanglements with love and career, and even new characters brought into Carrie's circle all challenged her to reconsider who she wanted to be. Each friend was living their own version of a second act, and Carrie couldn't ignore the reflection staring back at her. Maybe she too was standing at a crossroads. By the time we reached the final episodes, the energy around Carrie was unmistakable. The show slowed down around her. Conversations were heavier, decisions more final, and even the city itself, the backdrop that always acted like another character, seemed to whisper of change. For decades, New York symbolized possibility for Carrie Bradshaw. But in Season 3, the city began to feel more like a witness to her transformation than a playground for her adventures. The finale picked up all these threads and wove them together into one central question. Could Carrie truly let go of the past and step into the unknown? What made this moment so powerful was that the answer wasn't given directly. Instead, the writers left us with space to think, to argue, and to wonder, and that's where the brilliance lies. This wasn't just about Carrie's fictional life, it was about what it means for all of us when we reach a turning point. Carrie Bradshaw has always been a symbol of reinvention, but this time it felt different. This wasn't about chasing another man or writing another column. This was about facing herself. Her story in Season 3 reminded us that moving forward isn't about erasing the past, it's about carrying it with you, but refusing to let it define you. And that's the emotional groundwork the finale set up so carefully. The finale of And Just Like That Season 3 was not built on fireworks or shocking twists. Instead, it was woven with quiet decisions, subtle shifts, and emotional undercurrents that carried more weight than any grand gesture ever could. Every frame seemed designed to remind us that Carrie Bradshaw's story has never just been about romance, it's been about choices. And in this finale, her choices spoke louder than words. The episode begins with Carrie reflecting, not rushing. That itself is unusual for her. For years, we knew Carrie as a woman always caught between deadlines, dates, or drama. But here, she slows down. There's a stillness in the way she moves through her apartment, her city, and her conversations. It's almost as if the writers wanted us to feel the gravity of this moment, to know that this wasn't just another episode. It was the end of an era, or maybe the start of one of the most telling moments comes in her interactions with her friends. Miranda's confession about feeling lost in her career, Charlotte's fear of no longer being needed by her children, and Seema's ever-present skepticism about love, these weren't just side stories. They were mirrors. Each of these women was wrestling with questions of identity, relevance, and reinvention. And Carrie, listening to them, realized she was no different. The finale made it clear, the bond between these women has always been more than cocktails and gossip. It's been about reflecting each other's struggles back like a prism dot, then comes the defining turn. Carrie's confrontation with her future as a writer. A pivotal conversation hints that her voice may no longer be what it once was. She wonders if people still want to hear about her version of love, or if she herself even believes in what she's selling. This is more than a career doubt, it's symbolic. For Carrie, writing has always been the bridge between her inner life and the outer world. If that bridge feels unstable, then who is she? The finale didn't answer this directly, but it forced her and us to sit in that discomfort, of course. No, Carrie Bradshaw's story would be complete without romance, and the finale gave us just enough to keep the conversation alive. A quiet, intimate exchange hinted at the possibility of new love. Not a grand passion sweeping her off her feet, but something steadier, more mature, and perhaps more fragile. The scene wasn't about fireworks, it was about vulnerability. It suggested that Carrie might be ready to open her heart again, but in a way that looks nothing like her past. The imagery in the closing moments spoke louder than any dialogue. Carrie standing alone, framed against the New York skyline, wasn't the image of a woman defeated by loss. It was the image of a woman choosing to stand still, breathe, and acknowledge her crossroads. The silence of that moment was deafening. No clever one-liner, no grand epiphany, just Carrie, the city, and the weight of her decisions. And here's the brilliance of it. The finale refused to give us the neat bow we've come to expect from television endings. It didn't tell us who Carrie would end up with. It didn't promise a career rebirth. It didn't hand us closure. Instead, it reminded us that real life doesn't work that way. Endings are messy. They're full of pauses, not periods. This deliberate ambiguity is what makes the finale unforgettable. It left fans debating, theorizing, and projecting their own experiences onto Carrie's story. Was she walking into a future of love, or was she learning to embrace solitude? Was she finally ready to put Big behind her, or would his shadow follow her forever? The truth is, the finale didn't answer because it wasn't supposed to. It left the ending open because Carrie Bradshaw's story has always belonged as much to the audience as it has to her. In those final frames, the writers asked us to stop looking for the next big love story and instead pay attention to the quieter one, the love we build with ourselves. That's the real cliffhanger. And just like that, the story didn't end, it transformed. Asterisk if the finale of And Just Like That Season 3 seemed quiet on the surface, that's because the true fireworks were happening beneath it. The writers didn't rely on grand speeches or dramatic breakups, they relied on symbols, gestures, and the kind of visual storytelling that rewards viewers who pay close attention. Every detail felt intentional, like a secret message about who Carrie Bradshaw has become and where she might be heading next. One of the most powerful symbols was Carrie's apartment. For decades, her home has been the stage for her inner monologues. The place where she typed away at her laptop, poured glasses of wine, and tried on impossible shoes. But in this season's finale, the apartment felt different. The familiar. Walls seemed quieter, almost stripped of their old magic. Carrie walking through those rooms wasn't just a woman moving through her space. It was a woman moving through her own history. The apartment became a metaphor for memory, comforting, but also confining. Was this still her safe haven, or had it become a cage holding her back from a future she hadn't yet dared to imagine? Another symbolic moment came in her conversations with her friends. Miranda's struggle with professional purpose and Charlotte's anxieties about motherhood aging out weren't just side plots. They symbolized stages of life that Carrie herself had to confront. By surrounding her with these women, the writers were telling us that Carrie's transformation wasn't happening in isolation. It was part of a larger truth that reinvention is something we all must face, no matter how different our lives may look on the surface. Each friend embodied a version of the questions Carrie carried inside her. Who am I without my old labels? What do I do when the roles I've lived in for decades stop fitting? Romance, too, carried heavy symbolism in the finale. The potential for a new relationship wasn't presented as a whirlwind or a rescue. Instead, it was subtle and almost fragile possibility. This was deliberate. It symbolized maturity, a quieter form of intimacy that contrasts sharply with the whirlwind loves of Carrie's past. Instead of dazzling us with passion, the writers showed us the power of patience, of allowing love to arrive softly rather than crash in like a storm. This wasn't about repeating old patterns, it was about rewriting them. Even the city itself played a symbolic role. New York has always been a character in Carrie's story, but this time it looked different. Less like a playground of endless opportunity and more like a witness to everything she had endured. The skyline wasn't sparkling with promise, it was holding its breath, reflecting her uncertainty. The shift in how New York was presented symbolized Carrie's changing perspective. The city hadn't changed, but she had. Where once she saw infinite adventure, now she saw the weight of history, memory, and decisions waiting to be made. Then there was the silence. Perhaps the most striking choice in the finale was what wasn't said. Carrie, a woman who built her identity on words, was often framed in silence. No clever voiceover, no witty lines to sum it all up. Just her breathing, pausing, waiting. That silence was its own symbol. It represented the uncertainty of transition, the uncomfortable gap between endings and beginnings. It was the writer's way of showing us that sometimes growth doesn't sound like wisdom. It sounds like nothing at all, and we can't ignore the wardrobe. Carrie's fashion has always been symbolic, each outfit telling us something about her state of mind. And then, the finale, her look was pared back. Still elegant, still distinctly Carrie, but more grounded. Gone were the extravagant flourishes screaming for attention. Instead, her clothes mirrored her journey, refined, thoughtful, and quieter. It was as if her style had matured alongside her, no longer demanding to be seen, but quietly insisting on being understood. Fans have speculated endlessly about these choices. Was the apartment a metaphor for Big's lingering presence? Was the silence a way of showing us that Carrie's voice as a writer is evolving? Was her more subdued wardrobe a hint that she's finally learning to define herself without the armor of extravagance? The beauty is that all of these interpretations can be true at once. The finale's greatest symbolic message may be this: endings aren't about resolution. They're about transformation. Carrie wasn't given a clear path because life rarely offers one. Instead, the writers left us with a mosaic of images, conversations, and silences that invite us to reflect on what moving forward really looks like. And just like that, the symbols told the story that words couldn't asterisk the finale of, and just like that, Season 3 didn't give us closure, it gave us possibility. And in many ways, that choice was the most Carrie Bradshaw ending of all. For a character who has spent decades writing about love, questioning her choices, and reinventing herself in front of us, the idea of a perfectly tied-up conclusion would have felt dishonest. Instead, the show left us in the liminal space where endings bleed into beginnings. That's where Carrie lives now, and that's where her future lies. So what does it really mean for Carrie Bradshaw moving forward? First, it means redefining her story. For so long, Carrie has been defined by the men in her life, Big Aiden, the whirlwind romances that pulled her in and spit her out. But the finale suggested that love might not be the center of her narrative anymore. It's still there, still important, but now it's quieter, more balanced. The future isn't about chasing passion, it's about building a life where love supports her rather than consumes her. That's a massive shift for a woman whose entire identity once hinged on whether love was grand enough to write about. Second, it means facing the mirror of her career. Carrie's doubt about her voice as a writer was not just professional angst, it was symbolic of a deeper truth. Writers evolve because people evolve, and Carrie's next chapter may not be about relationships at all. Maybe her voice now belongs to stories about reinvention, loss, resilience, and friendship in later life. Maybe her greatest contribution isn't reminding us what it feels like to fall in love at 30, but showing us what it means to rebuild at 50. If season 3 was the question, am I still relevant? Then Carrie's future will be her answer. Third, it means learning to live with grief rather than being defined by it. Big shadow has loomed over the series from the very first episode of And Just Like That, but in season 3 we saw Carrie finally start to put that grief in perspective. She will never erase it, nor should she, but the finale suggested she no longer wants to live under it. Her choice to embrace silence, to stand still, and to breathe felt like a quiet act of rebellion against the heaviness of her loss. The future Carrie may not be about moving on from Big, but about carrying him with her in a way that doesn't suffocate her. That is a deeply human lesson, one that resonates beyond television. Fourth, it means friendship remains her anchor. While romance and career have shifted, Carrie's relationships with Miranda, Charlotte, and her newer friends continue to ground her. These women aren't just side characters, they are the safety net that allows Carrie to take risks. In the finale, their own struggles with identity, relevance, and reinvention reminded us that Carrie's story is part of a larger tapestry. Her future isn't a solo journey, it's a shared one. Whatever decisions she makes, they will be reflected, questioned, and supported by this circle of women who have walked beside her for decades. Finally, Carrie's future means embracing uncertainty. That might sound unsatisfying, but it's also what makes her story so relatable. The finale didn't tell us whether she fall in love again, whether she write another book, or whether she move out of her iconic apartment. It told you as something more important, that it's okay not to know. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you're at a crossroads and give yourself permission to take the next step slowly. Carrie's future is unwritten, and that's exactly the point. For fans, this ending is bittersweet. We wanted answers, but instead we got an invitation to imagine, to interpret, and to project our own lives onto Carrie's. Because the truth is, Carrie Bradshaw has never just been a character. She's been a mirror, showing us the chaos of love, the pain of loss, the joy of reinvention, and the courage it takes to step into the unknown. So, what really happened to Carrie Bradshaw at the end of season 3? She didn't finish her story, she transformed it. She stood still, she chose silence, and she let us see her in transition. And maybe that's the most powerful ending of all. Because endings in Carrie's world are never really endings. They're just pauses before the next chapter begins. And just like that, her story goes on.